Cool. I guess the reason for having you guys all here together, we thought it'd be interesting for people to try and understand the different challenges in different environments, from the high performance end to purely getting people to recreational level. I know everybody's serious at whatever level they're doing, but it'd be quite good to see what sort of challenges. And I thought from Andrew's perspective as well, the NCAA, it's a highly regulated environment. So obviously you didn't always have all the choice. You couldn't do everything you wanted to do. So I just thought it'd be interesting to cover some of that stuff. And I guess my first question would be when did you realize COVID was going to affect your rowing program this year? So Kieran, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so from my point of view, I think we had, so we were supposed to race at the women's 8's head, which was quite early March. That obviously got cancelled, not due to COVID, but that was because of the weather and the river flow. The week after, we were supposed to go to Amsterdam to race at the Heineken. And I think that was the first time that I kind of realized, obviously I knew it was serious, but that was the first time I realized things are getting cancelled now and kind of travel is being restricted. And I think from that point on, everything happened then really, really quickly. I think, part of that was probably, maybe I could have maybe looked into it more at the time, but I guess I was so focused on, that was our first main race of the year. So I think, I was very much blinkers on, just thinking about those races. And then when we found out the event had been cancelled, and even if it had gone ahead, we might not have been allowed into the Netherlands or maybe even back into our country. I think that was the first time I ever thought, okay, this is serious business now that we need to kind of give more thought to.
Because I spoke to one of the coaches he gave me a ring on his way back from Amsterdam because they were going to go and do the race. And they'd driven all the way there and realised they had to cancel the kids. They went out for the night and then drove home.
Okay. I'm glad we never got that far.
Yeah. How about you, Roger?
We were actually in Lesotho, which, if any of you know, is a small country within South Africa. And the reason we go there is for altitude training. We've got a big dam, a 50 kilometer dam up there, which is at 2,000 meters above sea level. So we obviously spend a lot of time up there, and we were there for 3 weeks. Obviously the virus hit South Africa quite late. Only in March, sort of the 10th, the first virus sort of came into the country, and we were up there for 2 weeks already. But we had to cancel, we sort of canceled the camp because South Africa started shutting down around the 18th of March, and all the borders were closing. So we were trying to keep pushing on because at that stage, the Olympic qualifier was still on, the Olympics were still on. As they canceled the Olympic qualifier, then we sort of started readjusting, and we were hoping, I guess, in a way, the Olympics were going to be cancelled just because the qualifiers weren't on and we were still trying to qualify 2 boats. But we sort of then got told by government we had to return within a day back to South Africa. So we moved all our equipment back and then started realizing it was on. I think being on a camp in a country like Lesotho, if you know it, it's so remote. We were so oblivious in a way what was happening in the world. We obviously could see it on the internet. And the guys almost were living in their own worlds, realizing that the world was sort of crumbling, but they had to continue because nothing had been cancelled. So it was very surreal, actually, where you had to keep training because things were going on. But deep down, and I've got an Italian coach on my team who had lost a few friends for everything that was happening in Italy. So he was really in a bad way, quite depressed up there. And he was sort of telling us nothing's going to happen, but we had to keep motivating the team for training. So it was really a difficult period. And I think most of the time, as you guys would know, it's managing athletes' heads. I think that's been the biggest psychological work we've been doing. And I realized that since we were on that camp and returning home, it's just managing people.
Yeah. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, things cascaded pretty quickly here. I think the real moment where people knew that things were going to start happening at an accelerated pace was when the first NBA professional basketball player was diagnosed with COVID-19. And then from there, I think, again, like you said earlier, that this is a pretty highly regulated environment where we have a lot of administrative layers ranging from the national level to the institutional level and everything in between. We were in the midst, and by we I mean collegiate sport in America, was in the midst of March Madness, or the men's basketball tournament, and the cancellation of that was really the straw. So when administrators decided that they're going to cancel all these activities that are huge revenue generators, it became a really quite a real thing, and it happened so quickly. I actually went to our facility for a training session with our team, and basically once I got there, the phone rang, and call it, and I had to walk out in front of the team, and 75 women, and say, there's no training today, and we're finished for the season. We had a couple of smaller competitions that we had traveled a portion of our squad for, just scrimmage types of things. So a few people had an opportunity to get their feet wet, but otherwise the entire squad had to stop before even getting to go to a start line for the season. And Roger's right. I mean, a big part of it is managing the group and where their heads are. But for us, because of the regulations and the very clean cutoff, I think it's made it very difficult for coaches and all sporting codes to do that job moving forward. Because the NCAA, conferences, institutions, coaches aren't completely in control. There are a lot of administrative levels. So administrators don't work at the coalface with the students, and sometimes they look at things from a different perspective and don't think of that athlete management piece. So we went from me standing in front of the team to the only contact I could have was through Zoom, and that was even regulated by NCAA requirements of what I could and could not do.
So you couldn't even send training programs or anything like that for the kids?
I could send training programs. Everything became officially voluntary, so I could send recommendations, nothing specific. I could have meetings, like Zoom meetings, for example, but I could not require any training. I could not supervise any training. We were not allowed to do anything physical virtually. So it became just like crossing T's and dotting I's types of meetings and nuts and bolts updates and trying to get where everybody was coming from and trying and keep them moving forward.
Because for Dave, for you, that was quite different, because you guys did quite a lot of stuff, didn't you? Cake bakes and all sorts of stuff.
Over this period so far?
Yeah.
I mean, so for me, I was just casting my mind back to when we started to think about it becoming real. And I remember I flicked back to some of my messages with some of our coaches. And it went back to about January, and I remember messaging him saying, I'm a bit concerned in January, a bit concerned about our training camp in Easter. And I remember the little chat backwards and forwards saying, it's not going to affect us and all the rest of it. And then how real that has become has been pretty remarkable, really. So back in January, I think that's when, we started to think that there might be something that's rumbling away. The effect that it had on us. I mean, so the first instance was School's Head. So, unfortunately, the whole season's been taken away from the crew and the school. We thought we might be able to squeeze it out to School's Head, but literally the sort of shutdown and the no sports rule came about 3 days or something before School's Head. So unfortunately, that was the sort of stop to our season. But we've tried to keep things going. You say about communication that we've had in amongst the squad's been pretty good. School, being in a school, it's still running. It's a fee-paying school, so the school has to offer an education if it wants to collect fees. So they've been amazing with all the education, the online stuff that they've been doing with all the students, and part of that is the other half of school life being sport. So yeah, we've tried to keep a lot of sort of virtual events going, and just trying to keep the community. I think that's been the most important thing, is keeping the boat club community in terms of performance and fitness and all the rest of it. Okay, that's one side of it, but you know, that will all come back fairly quickly with juniors, you know, when we get given the green light, and hoping that's going to be September. But the big thing for us is, you know, that being a rower and being part of the boat club is more than just the sport. So, you know, keeping that the family community and over national schools. So I think we're referring to over national schools, the like support group did a great job in running some different activities that families could do online, like cake competitions. We had like a 2K relay running race as a family, 2K relay race on the ergo as a family. So those sorts of things, which were quite nice to keep, you know, to sort of keep a bit of motivation going, and just a bit of community from there. So.
I'd be quite interested to hear that all of you have a bit of a discussion, I guess, around, like you mentioned, Roger, the hardest thing is dealing mentally with the athletes now, because everything that's part of their identity has been taken away from them. Things that really matter are gone. How have you guys managed to cope with that, or communicate or manage the athletes through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been such a tricky, we've been in lockdown for 9 weeks, and we had a hard lockdown the first 3 weeks. And we've sort of tracked the athletes over time, and everyone's gone through a form of depression. My top 2 athletes who are going to the Olympics, probably as they were a qualified boat, they were at the disappointment that now the Olympics were off, and why should they train? One's near the end of his career, one's new. So it's all those different things, and the depression is so hard to understand in Zoom and only on a phone call. I'm one of these coaches who always see the athletes every day, so you get to used to how they look in the eyes. Are they teary? Are they not? But always on a Zoom or something, they hide so much. So it took us a lot of time to try and have a good understanding of how were they really coping. And I think everyone's really put on a tough shoulder and said, no, we're doing fine. And that's an athlete's view, is always that I'm doing good. But to really get deeper and understand it has taken us time. So, and I've got a squad of 16 to 18 athletes, male and female, and everyone has dealt with it completely differently. And I think the ones who were certain of going to the Olympics, certain of maybe doing well, the ones who still need to qualify, it's been a really up and down process. But a good one, because I think at the end of it, when I look back now, and hence for this talk, is you've sort of learned a lot more about people when you're in complete isolation. I've certainly learned how I would need to deal with the athletes quite differently. And I've learned a lot about my quiet ones, who should be good callers and leaders in boats. I've realized in this time they actually haven't led. And I've actually picked up some new leaders in the group who've taken a lot more on their shoulders and tried to build up other athletes in the team. So from that psychological point, it's been a learning curve, difficult, all those words. It's been quite an emotional roller coaster ride for myself as well, and my other coaches and the team. But each week brings us a new thing, because we're so uncertain of what the next few weeks are. I still can't decide how long my season's going to be, when we're going to have a rest, when the new season is going to start. I mean, it's just completely in the air. So we've got a new team philosophy: make today better than yesterday, and we only focus on 1 week at a time. And it's as you can imagine, and you're all in the same position, it really is a difficult pot at the moment.
Yeah, how about you guys? Anybody else? What have you guys noticed with the athletes?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has, from our perspective, again, from the regulation, a lot has been put on to the athlete's shoulders and I facilitate that, and I plant the seeds and so on within the boundaries of what I've been given. But I again agree with Roger. We're seeing some people who really step up and take a little bit more of that weight and lead, while others, right now, in addition to, I have over 100 athletes that I'm dealing with. So with the University of Iowa and the US under 23 women's program combined. So it's a lot of meetings, a lot of individual meetings. It has been pretty difficult. Those people who are naturally very communicative with me, and I have those types of relationships, that's continued at their initiative. but really getting inside the heads and understanding the needs of some of those quieter ones, or the ones that are maybe only a year in, that I don't have as an evolved relationship with, has been really challenging. Because you're right, they can hide behind the screen, and it's hard to figure out what it is that they need.
And Kieran, how about you think? What do you think how this is going to affect your athletes and your program going forward?
I think one thing, I guess, put like a more positive spin on things, what I've definitely seen over the past 10 or 11 weeks is that athletes have really learned a lot about themselves. I think we're probably in a slightly different position to maybe a lot of other clubs, in that when we kind of split up for lockdown, we didn't have enough equipment to give everyone an erg, everyone a bike, everyone an RP3, etc. So I think what I've seen is trying to encourage people to develop skills or develop their physiology in a different way than what they used to. Is that maybe the first week or two it was a little bit tentative, but I think I've seen people really push themselves in a way that maybe I didn't think they could, and I think specifically, or more importantly, a way they didn't think they could either. And I know I have a lot of athletes that, if you'd said a couple of months ago you're going to have to spend 12 weeks training on your own in your lounge, I'm sure that they wouldn't have, they would have been very against it, and they would have gone into it thinking, I'll never be able to do that. I guess just that I've seen a lot of resilience from all of the athletes that I coach. And a similar experience to you guys is, when you try and get feedback from them, some of them will need a little bit more of an arm around the shoulder than others to kind of keep encouraging them. But I've seen a lot of things, a lot of kind of PBs and people going for like hour records and half marathons, and just doing things that they never thought they'd be capable of. And actually, this is a chance. I guess one thing I've thought quite a lot is that, okay, at the moment we can't go rowing, so I think let's not try and keep a rowing season going, because that's just not going to happen. And let's look at it another way and be like, okay, well, here's a chance that we can do some other things that we might end up enjoying, and not just constantly have that mindset of we want to row but we can't, we want to row but we can't. And actually just try and explore some other avenues and be like, okay, well, what else can we be good at, and what else can we measure an improvement in? And I think my athletes have responded really well to that.
So go back to Roger's point about changing his coaching, Dave. What do you think it's done to you as a coach? What have you reflected on? Do you think you'll coach differently after this?
Trying to think about coaching again. It seems so long ago. It's all been built around a program, and much like Kieran saying, just leaving it in the athlete's hands a little bit. So I think what's been good as a positive is that the athletes have become more accountable for what they're doing, rather than us sort of spoon feeding them. So I guess as a coach, it gives you a bit of confidence that maybe you don't have to spoon feed them. And if you give them a bit of responsibility, then the good ones will take it up. And that's been really good to see, much like all these other guys, is just, setting up different challenges for them and all the rest, and seeing how they respond to it. It's been really interesting. There's been the well-motivated athletes have really taken it on, and then the ones less so, might not have done quite so much, which gives us some really good information going forwards in September. There's going to be some athletes there that I'll probably look at very differently than I would have before this lockdown, positively and negatively. So there's some athletes that you would have thought were the stars, but actually through lockdown maybe not managed to keep themselves so motivated, and it just questions their personal motivation, or do they just need somebody pushing them the whole time, which some people do. But then equally, some of the athletes, the ones that you may overlook, have shown some real, good fighting spirit, competitiveness in the different sort of challenges we've been doing. And I think it's just been an interesting case study almost that we've sort of lived through. So I think, I'd probably, maybe use technology a little bit more as well, from, in terms of Like holiday, the big thing for us is when we break up and, you know, you do some really good training for Christmas and then you have a month of holiday. It's always a worry. However, being through this period now and seeing how it's worked will make me sort of a lot more confident going into these breaks, that we can actually set up a good program and monitor a good program, because they've done it they've done it through this period. So yeah, so that's good for us. And I think the interesting thing about, I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but just thinking of kind of positives out of this situation is, you know, had the season been a normal season, we would have been breaking up, you know, in a few weeks after Henley. Maybe some guys would do some international stuff, but largely the school would stop, you know, and all the kids would take 6-8 weeks off, and they probably wouldn't do much, and they get back in September in pretty poor shape. But I've sort of spoken to them a lot at length of, actually, this is quite a positive, because hopefully in September, if they just, you know, we need to alter the training over the summer, but they're in the swing of things. So rather than just have that big break that they feel that they've needed, which you do after a big, you know, intense regatta season with all the stresses and the emotion that goes with it, they can just keep the training going, and hopefully in September they'll be in a really good position to absorb the training that we give them, and they'll have a really good base. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of stuff on just, you know, building the cake, just building the base that we can add to throughout the first term for sure. But the main thing is that they're motivated and they want to row. So, you know, trying to stay away from the ergo too much, because for, you know, juniors, not all of them love it. So there's no point in keep pursuing that the whole time. So just trying to look at different modes of exercise that they enjoy doing and that they want to do. So, you know, their physiology is still ticking over quite nicely come September.